Thank you very much. I would ask you to stay for our guests from the World Food Program who are here to present the report on nutrition. So we will go right to them. If you want to go ahead and start. We will. No, everybody's online. If we could put the briefers online, and then we'll start with Carmen.
Thank you so
Go
much.
ahead. Yes, go ahead. And I apologize to both you and Professor Bundy for the delay, but news gets in the way, unfortunately, of important things.
Of course, no problem. Very happy to be in the New York briefing room.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for your attention. And obviously, after the very sobering news that we just heard from the UN headquarters, I'm glad to say we're here to give you some good news, which is hard to come by these days. The World Food Program is launching today its fourth State of School Feeding Worldwide publication. This publication comes out every 2 years and is the major monitoring report on this massive policy area that is very important for governments. I promised some good news, so I will go ahead and give you the highlights of the report. Today we are announcing that 466 million children are receiving meals in schools. This is the largest food assistance program for children worldwide. The good news is that over the last 4 years, an additional 80 million children have received meals compared to where we were in 2020. This is unprecedented progress. We have not seen a scale up of a program of this magnitude in at least a decade, and most of it is due to government mobilization and domestic investments. There's more good news. Of those 80 million children that are being reached in addition to what was already done in 2020, about 60% of those are in low-income countries, which tell us that even through fiscal crises and through financial hardship, low-income countries where children need these programs the most are making enormous efforts to make sure that their children are protected during crises and their futures are secured. Africa is the continent with the most impressive progress. More than 20 million children are additionally receiving meals in schools in the continent. We want to highlight success stories in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, only to name a few. Benin is another country. This is really thanks to presidential leadership in the continent, and we're very glad to see Africa stepping up on the fight against hunger and also guaranteeing a better future for its children. We also know that this scale up, this massive scale up, is thanks to impressive funding increases. Global funding for school meals has gone from $43 billion in 2020 to $84 billion in the last estimates that we have. Now, what's also impressive is that 99% of the investment is coming from government budgets. This means that this is a program, this is a global priority, funded primarily by governments. Donor support accounts only for 1 or 2% of global investment in these programs. Again, this means that this is not a donor-supported or reliant effort. This is a government-backed agenda. These are presidents, prime ministers, and ministers that are prioritizing the well-being of their children and the future. We are also announcing in the publication that a large part of this success is owed to the political mobilization of the School Meals Coalition, which was launched in 2021 under the leadership of President Macron, the government of Finland, and later President Lula of Brazil. The coalition now has more than 100 countries that have joined, most of them at presidential level, that have committed to ensuring that every child receives a healthy meal in school. And as you could see from the numbers we are publishing today, many of them have mobilized towards that big goal. The World Food Program has mobilized and has evolved its own role to support this government mobilization. The organization is the Secretariat of the School Meals Coalition and also the largest UN agency supporting this massive policy priority for governments. I want to end by saying, of course, that not all is rosy news. We are also identifying gaps that need to be filled for the future. Even though low-income countries have expanded their coverage, they still lag behind overall when compared to high-income countries. So at this moment, only 30% of children in low-income countries have access to these programs compared to 80% of children in high-income countries. Moving forward, we are calling on all governments to expand access to these programs, which are so vital, and the Professor Bundy is going to tell you why in a second. These programs are vital for many reasons, and it is unsustainable and not acceptable that children in low-income countries that are the most vulnerable have the least access to these programs. Professor Bundy, can you please complement what I've just mentioned as a co-author and co-editorial member of the report? Over.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk on these issues, and thank you, Carmen, for this for some good news this evening. I want to also reinforce here the point Carmen was making, that this is part of this work is coming from the School Meals Coalition, and that the School Meals Coalition has placed extreme emphasis on the quality of the evidence. So these are data that we want to feel are reliable. And I want to make the point that we've taken a very special approach here, something new in looking at global evidence, making this country-led and really bringing in the experts working in countries, those who are already advising governments. We have an academy, as we call it, of more than 1,200 professors and practitioners from 124 countries who are part of the way we're looking at and analyzing this information. And I wanted to emphasize that the message, that there are some key messages resulting from this stronger understanding of the potential benefits of school meals programs. And it is this better understanding of the benefits that has led to them becoming public policy in so many countries, policies that are owned by the countries, paid for by the countries, and implemented by them. This extraordinary increase of 80 million in coverage since the COVID pandemic. And so there are really, the key messages that have come out of this are threefold. The first is that the well-being of school children is critically important for their learning outcomes. I often think this is something that parents always well understood, but governments and agencies really didn't. And it's only now that we're really recognizing that the well-being of school children and adolescents is key to their learning ability, and that providing them with a good education, and the world spends about $3 trillion on educating its children, needs the leverage of well-being amongst those children at the same time. And we're seeing real political change here. The most widely given example of this is the recent election in Indonesia, where the president's manifesto specifically highlighted investing in the next generation, what he called the golden generation in Indonesia, based on the concept that generation by 2040 will be larger than the dependent population. So this is investing in human capital as a priority for public policy in a country. And that the second key message that's come out of this is that school meals really are one of the best ways to establish good dietary preferences for life. And we're seeing that emphasized in much of the research. So that what we're saying now, what countries are saying now, is that school meals programs are mainstream ways of ensuring three important outcomes. The first of those is human health, and we heard in the opening remarks there that the new UNICEF report has shown that school-age children in particular have now levels of 9% of obesity, and that addressing obesity an obesity that leads to what we call cardiometabolic diseases or non-communicable diseases in middle age, diabetes and heart disease and blood pressure and so forth, those things are directly linked, and that all of the management processes that we have in place have not worked with those, and it's prevention that's likely to be the key way forward. So that's human health. But also, if you change the way children relate to food, and if you change the way young people think about food, they will lifelong change their dietary preferences, and they will select foods on a more rational basis. One is to improve their own health, but the other is to improve planetary health. And I think all of us have seen that in children ourselves, that they're choosing foods now that also are ones that favor sustainability in our environments. And connected to that, and the third point, is that agricultural production of food has ruined soil health in many parts of the world. And there's a real movement now towards regenerative and agroecological approaches to farming to fix that. And one of the ways of achieving that is, again, by changing the dietary preferences of people. And it's these roles, human health, planetary health, and soil health, those changes are key to, are driven by school meals programs in a very realistic way. And my final point is to talk about school meals programs in relation to their role in crisis situations, or their relevance in crisis situations. And I'm just going to say here that the example of Ukraine is the most salient, I think, here, that Ukraine created a food reform program, they call it the food reform in a time of war, that's specifically about ensuring that the children of Ukraine are fed despite everything else that's going wrong, and that they are fed if they go to school. So children who reach the school in Ukraine are now being fed. And over the last 2 years, we've worked with them, and now 1.5 million children a day are being fed in that way. So those are the positive messages that are coming out of the school meals programs, and these are the positive messages coming out of this new State of School Feeding Worldwide report published by the World Food Programme. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. Let us now open for questions. Edie, go ahead.
Thank you both very much on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. A couple of follow-up questions. Can you tell us how many countries in total were covered in this report? And I know you've mentioned some of the least developed and developing countries. Were there any of the developed countries mentioned? And was the United States included at all? Noting that President Trump has cut off funding for the World Food Program. And on the quality of school meals, I know the professor just mentioned that this is a way to instill healthy eating habits in children. Is that any kind of a requirement, or is that up to individual governments and school districts to carry out? Thank you.
You
I can take the first question, and maybe just to say that over the years that we've published this report, the number of countries that are in our database has also increased, as has the quality of data, as Professor Bundy was saying. So we are extremely proud that this report now includes data from 174 countries. That includes countries from high, middle, and low income status. It includes information from the US, from most of Europe, and as you can see from the number, this is quite a representative sample of the global situation. I should say also, as I mentioned before, that the other thing that we're announcing today is that by and large, these programs, which are not insignificant investments, are being borne and carried, paid by primarily by governments. And so, although donor funding is very important, primarily in fragile countries and low-income countries, by and large, these programs are being supported and sustained by governments themselves. Professor Bundy, maybe on the quality question.
Sure. Thank you very much. Can I also just thank Edie for welcoming us in that way? That's very touching. Can I also say that we worked recently with the European Commission on this issue, and 26 out of the 27 countries in the European Commission see school meals as a key contributor to equilibrating the opportunities for children in the European Union. But we've recently seen Canada and Copenhagen, two countries which have not historically had national school meals programs, decide that they are going to implement them. So it's by no means only low-income countries that are interested here. This is any country that's interested in the future of its children is paying attention to this issue. And of course, you're right. The quality of the food is key. Any old food is not the answer. But understanding of what food is important is very well developed. And food standards, FAO, WFP, WHO, all are playing key roles in raising what those standards are. And countries are recognizing, this is the key thing, that country-led programs are really recognizing the need to stand up and to improve their standards. And let me just say briefly that improving the quality of food in schools often means they're buying more food locally from local farmers. So it has all kinds of virtuous cycle effects. Good questions.
Thank you. Let me go to the back, and then we will make our way back towards the front.
Thank you for the briefing. This is Karim Arwifia from the Maghreb Arab Press News Agency. I want to go back to the progress made in Africa. As you mentioned, did the civil society and NGOs play any role in this? And what can be done to maintain this progress in the years to come? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, because it allows me also to amplify the data a little bit. I mentioned that only in the last 2 years, there's been an increase of 20 million children additionally, which brings the total in Africa of 71.5 million children receiving meals. This is sub-Saharan Africa. Again, this is really impressive numbers. The region is the one that has made the most progress in scaling up these programs. And most of it is because of government efforts. Now, agencies and NGOs, civil society are crucial partners for governments to be able to achieve these milestones. NGOs and the UN system in general are there both supporting this operationally. There is a very important role to play in helping these governments reach these children, particularly in hard to reach areas or in conflict affected areas, but also in providing technical assistance, in sharing best practice, in helping countries connect to each other. So there's a growing network connected to the School Meals Coalition that is consolidating or connecting partners to those governments as they scale up based on their commitments. So I just wanted to also shout out and say that as part of the School Meals Coalition, there are more than 140 partner organizations that are now committed to this cause, which is also a sign of important momentum, also from civil society, from think tanks, academia, UN agencies, multilateral development banks, and others.
And if I can
Yes.
just expand on that slightly to say that within the African context, of course, community organizations are key to this. That government policy can be a very important driver. But just as Carmen was saying, NGOs but literally community organizations of parents can also be vitally important in this. But also in this context, it's really interesting to look at the history here and to recognize that the Malabo Declaration of the African Union, it was 2004, very specifically talks about homegrown school feeding as a key issue for Africa, implying two things. One, that the school feeding was a necessary part of investing in children's future, which it absolutely is, but also that homegrown food developed, food grown in countries and particularly food grown locally by family farmers, was the key to making this healthy and available food. So it's again a virtuous cycle that I think fits very well with people's understanding of how our world works.
Thank you. Noreen? No? Do we have more questions in the room? Do we have, I don't see additional questions online. So thank you so much. We were joined today by Carmen Burbano. It's very nice to see you on screen, Carmen. It's been a very long time. She's WFP's Director of School Meals and Social Protection. And also we were joined by Professor Donald Bundy, who is the co-editorial lead for the report. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us today, and thank you so much for your patience. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.